My name is Ben van Beurden, CEO of Royal Dutch Shell, and you are watching Whose Time?
荷兰皇家壳牌公司的首席执行官范伯登近期频频地在中国露面，在参加了3月中旬举行的2016年中国发展高层论坛之后呢，又现身壳牌与中海油的合作签字仪式，见证了双方达成扩建南海石化项目的协议。壳牌目前是国际石油巨头之一，总部位于荷兰海牙和英国伦敦，业务遍及全球70多个国家和地区，雇员超过9万人。范伯登1983年加入壳牌公司，在公司上游与下游业务担任过多个运营与商业方面的职务，在液化天然气领域有着长达10年的工作经验。2006年，他出任壳牌化工部执行副总裁；2013年1月至9月，担任壳牌下游业务总裁；2014年1月，正式上任壳牌首席执行官。在出席2016年中国发展高层论坛期间，范伯登接受了财新时间的专访，就全球石油价格、可再生能源利用以及壳牌未来业务重点以及在中国开展的合作项目等问题，回答了财新传媒主编王硕的提问。
Let's start from oil price, and the oil price has rebounded very rapidly in the recent months, and almost 50% more than a few months before. Why?
There's many factors weighing onto the oil price, positive, negative. It's a very dynamic market, the oil market, the energy market in general. So many factors acting at the same time. Quite often it's very, very hard to really understand what is happening. Of course,
even for you?
Well, for me personally, as the CEO of the company, we look at fundamentals, long-term trends. But the reality is nobody really can predict with certainty where oil prices will go. So we have to make sure as a company that we are competitive at every point in the price cycle. So fundamentally, it's all about reducing the break-even price of the portfolio that we have. So that we can be profitable, whether the oil price is $40, $50, $100 or $150.
Do you think that the oil price currently at 30, 40 level is sustainable? And what's your long-term prediction of the price?
I don't think I want to make a long-term prediction because I will be wrong anyway. But if I wanted to talk about the sustainability of today's price levels, sort of between 30 and 40, I do think fundamentals point towards a higher oil price in the medium term. If you look at how demand continues to grow, and oil demand has continued to grow since the discovery of oil, but importantly also supply from existing reservoirs continues to shrink every year. And for that gap to be closed, the industry has to invest $1 trillion at least every year. That amount of investment is not going to be forthcoming when cost and price are out of sync, which is where they currently are. So two things need to happen. Cost, of course, needs to come down, which is happening, and price needs to go up, which will happen over the long term as well. Where it will settle, I don't know. But what I do know is where it will settle, we will be able to make a profit.
And many would argue that the oil price, the fall of oil price since 2014 is different from previous one because this time it could be a long-term one.
I think here there is a fundamental difference in the sense that the dip we saw in the 2008 period was primarily driven by demand. This time it is primarily driven by supply. So it takes longer to settle through because supply side economics work on a longer time frame. If you look at typically projects that we undertake, large complex projects, they take about 4 or 5 years sometimes to build, and then at least 4 or 5 years even to develop them. So there is a lag effect when it comes to supply side economics, and that's why you see a longer duration of the slump at the moment.
And NOCs this time is particularly reluctant to cut productions. It seems like they want to grab market share no matter what, which makes IOC's life particularly difficult. Do you think there is an existential crisis for IOCs?
For a number of companies, of course, there will be an existential crisis. If you have not prepared for something like this, if your financial strength wasn't strong going into this, of course, there is a key pressure on companies at the moment. If I then compare that with my own company, we went into this period of low oil prices with a very low gearing, a very low debt ratio, about 12%. We acted very, very vigorously in the downturn by taking out capital costs, by taking out operating costs. In 1 year, we took out $12 billion of spend. That's almost a year's worth of dividend that we took out. And as a result of it, we have preserved our strength, and we have been able to, as I said, even take advantage of the lower oil price period. Over time, I think, again, if, the only existential threat that I could see in the energy sector is when people would stop using energy, which is not going to happen anytime soon.
在全球气候变暖的严峻形势下，各国也在加快节能减排的步伐。太阳能、风能等可再生能源将成为全球未来能源开发利用的重点。而如何在新能源结构中求发展，则成为了传统能源公司面临的一大挑战。范伯登表示，天然气是最洁净的化石燃料，未来天然气与可再生能源的混合利用将成为一大趋势。
Do you think that renewable energy, like solar power, will compete with fossil fuel at cost anytime soon?
It does already. Maybe not everywhere, maybe not every type of renewable, but at the moment, if you look at, say, electricity from solar, it's fully cost competitive in many parts of the world with the alternative of thermal electricity, so electricity from gas or coal. So it's happening at the moment. So at the moment we are seeing an increased penetration of renewables in the electricity sector. But what we have to remember is that that actually comes from a relatively low base. So it will take time for it to be really material. And we also have to remember that, of course, electricity is only about 20% of the total use of energy. About 80% of the energy consumption is still taken in the form of something else than electricity. So it will take time. And what is also going to be required, of course, is an uninterruptible supply of energy. Now, all of that points to, indeed, more renewables, but probably renewables in a hybrid form with another electricity source, like, for instance, from natural gas. So the whole mix of natural gas and renewables we see as a particularly promising mix for the future.
So it has left time for you to adapt to, right? But what has you been doing to accommodate this change?
A lot. If we look at future trends, we see the inevitable rise of natural gas in the mix. As I said, as a good partner to renewables, but also in general as the cleanest form of fossil fuels, the lowest carbon intensity. And of all the IOCs, we are the ones with the most significant gas portfolio. The acquisition of BG has helped, and at the moment we are actually more gas than oil. We are a gas and oil company rather than an oil and gas company. At the same time, of course, we have worked hard to get into renewable forms of energy as well. Something which is very close to our competency set, of course, is biofuels. We are the largest IOC biofuels player in the world with a joint venture that we have in Brazil. And we are looking at alternative technologies, future technologies, and future business models that will work much more symbiotically with renewables as well. So I do think we have moved tremendously in this area. But at the same time, while all this happens, energy demand over the course of this century is going to double. So it will be a dual challenge. It is making the system less carbon intensive, but also providing more energy to more people.
You just mentioned that you have cut a lot of cost, have cut a lot of investments, but also you made acquisition of BG, a huge acquisition. How to reconcile these two strategies?
I think they go together very well. Of course, we have made sure that we took cost out, which is a general trend that we have to do in our industry, taking operating cost out, but also being prudent in the phasing of capital cost, making sure that we spend in areas only that, first of all, are competitive, of course, but secondly, also to a level that is affordable.
You mentioned that Shell should be simpler and more nimble, which means you will focus on LNG and the deep sea assets. Does that mean you will strip off your non-core onshore assets and the downstream business?
No, far from it. Indeed, we have to be a simpler company, a company that is really focused on its strengths. Now, our strengths are indeed very much in the area of LNG. They are very much also in the area of deep water. These are two very attractive areas in the energy system as well. And with BG, we have been able to make a major step forward. But at the same time, we need to simplify the company. We need to get out of a number of positions. We need to make sure that not only do we have a better, longer life portfolio, but we can also resequence and rethink how we are going to invest in a number of investment opportunities. So we will be more resilient, more free cash flow generative, higher returns, easier to understand, etc., etc. But it doesn't mean that we would be stepping out of, let's for instance say, the downstream. The downstream is a very important part of our portfolio. We have been restructuring that portfolio quite a bit. And if I then look here in China, it is actually the mainstay still of our business here. And as a matter of fact, all the aspects of the downstream, whether it is petrochemicals, whether it is retail, whether it is trading, whether it is lubricants, all of this is still growing very, very fast, particularly in China. We hope to be able to expand the Nanhai project with a factor 2 together with our partner Sinuk. And there will be other areas where we will be investing in.
作为在中国投资最大的国际能源公司之一呢，壳牌对于中国的市场尤为重视。从与中石化携手成立合资公司，到与中石油合作开展陕西长北天然气开采，再到近期与中海油签署扩展南海石化项目，在中国市场的业务拓展上呢，壳牌正在持续发力。
Let's talk about China. Chinese government is planning on reform oil and gas industry. So what expectation do you have from this reform, and which areas do you think that should be more open to international competition and investments?
All the aspects of reform that we are seeing we welcome. I think there's a tremendous transition going on in China. Energy reform is a key component of it. Over the last years, we have been working together with the DRC on understanding what would be good policy for energy markets. We just concluded a piece of work on the natural gas markets with some very robust and very sound policy recommendations that DRC, with help of Shell, have been formulating. And I hope that these will indeed be part of the future policies that we will see coming out in the 13th five-year plan. I think further liberalization in the natural gas market is important. And we have, as I said, good policy recommendations in that area because it will unlock either new demand, but more importantly also new supply domestically for natural gas. These are areas where I think the country has huge potential for growth. We have been an investor in that area in Changbei, and we would like to make a follow-on investment, which we are working on together with CNPC as well. This will be a key area in my mind for policy reform, but also in other aspects of the system, be it oil products, even petrochemicals, or strictly speaking, not energy, of course. Again, these are very, very important segments of the industry where foreign direct investment, the provision of technology, the opening up of markets in general is going to be good for the Chinese economy.
Many IOCs are cutting back on shale energy investments and because of the low oil and gas prices. So do you intend to do the same thing? Are you going to cut back on your unconventional energy investment into China, like your Sichuan project?
Well, in general, you indeed have seen across the world investors in unconventional resources, particularly in North America, cutting back because at this point in time, with depressed oil and gas prices, the relatively high cost structures, and the fact that, of course, shale developments have a very short life cycle, you will see people cutting back because it makes economic sense. And we have been doing the same thing. We have been concentrating our portfolios, we have been scaling back investment levels, etc. Specifically to your question around Sichuan, of course we have had a significant drilling program in 3 PSCs, which we have completed. The results coming out of it have been pretty mixed. We always knew, of course, as I said before, the geology of Sichuan is particularly challenging. You are from Sichuan, okay. Well, it is geologically wise, it is quite a challenging area to develop. And at this point in time, we have decided that there is no follow-on investment that can be justified.
You are one of the first to import from Iran right after the embargo being lifted, and you continue to operate in Russia after the international sanctions. So how do you see investing into and trading with politically sensitive countries?
Two things. First of all, we of course are very much aware of trade sanctions that may or may from time to time come into existence, and we always 100% comply with them. So we have, when investing and trading with Iran was sanctioned, we have had no activity. As a matter of fact, we even had to suspend payment of our trading activity to Iran for a few years, simply because we were not allowed to make payments. These sanctions have now been lifted, so the first thing we had to do was to pay our outstanding debt, and at the moment we are looking at what opportunities may materialize in Iran. Of course, Iran is a country with rich resources, and we will take an interest in how that develops, how it opens, what opportunities become available, and then, of course, if opportunities become available, they will have to rank in our global portfolio of opportunities, and there is no lack of opportunity at this point in time. And Russia is a slightly different story. Of course, there are sanctions in certain activities of the Russian energy system as well, and we don't participate in them. So we don't participate in deep water oil, we don't participate in Arctic, but we do participate in areas where we are allowed to, like, for instance, producing gas and liquefying gas for international markets in Sakhalin Island. There are certain activities in Siberia that we are still involved in. We have a downstream business in Russia, and these are just normal activities that are permitted, that we have been engaged in for many years, and that we hope to continue to grow also in the future.
My last question is about a bigger picture. In this new era of more volatility, more unpredictability, and less visibility, what's your survival strategy for huge IOCs next year?
In our industry, where many investments take years and years to develop, then years to build, and then subsequently years to deploy, you have to have a long-term view on things. So you cannot be kicked around by volatility too much. Now, at the same time, of course, volatility does affect us. If you don't manage well, if you're not prudent, indeed, the volatility in cash flows can seriously bite you. So again, the key strategy when it comes to the financial side is prudence. So make sure that we do not spend in areas where we don't have to spend, and make sure that we phase our investments so that we know that we can live within our financial means for the years to come. But at the same time, do not destroy capability, because what comes down will go up. And as I said, the fundamentals of the industry are such that they will require investment for many, many decades to come, also in oil and gas, $1 trillion a year or more. And we have to be ready to invest in that segment. So therefore, we have to be ready to have with the capability to do so. So preserving capability, making sure that whatever the price and cost level is, that we are competitive in relation to the rest. Making sure that we have the technologies to do that, and making sure that we take the long-term view. These are the key ingredients of our survival strategy.